Question 3. The angle of a sector of a circle with radius 22 centimeters is 60 degrees. If the sector is folded such that the straight edges coincide forming a cone, calculate correct to one decimal place the A. Radius, B. Height, and C. Volume of the cone. Take pi to be 22/7. So let's begin with the solution. We have a circle and then a sector of a circle, of this circle with a radius 22. So we have this 22 forming an angle of 60 degrees at the center. So this whole thing is the sector of the circle. Now let's draw our cone. The cone this sector forms should be this. Forgive my cone. Then we have this R, this H, and this is the slanted height of the cone. Right. So we are being asked to find the radius of the cone. Remember, the radius of the cone is different from the radius of the circle. Let's represent the radius of the circle with capital R. And then the radius of the cone should be small r, which we don't know. But we know that the length of the sector should be the length or the circumference of the base of the cone. So this whole thing, which is the length of the sector, should be this whole thing, the circumference of the cone. So the length of the sector should be, of the arc, the length of the arc of the sector should be pi over 360 times 2 pi r, where r is the radius of the circle. So this should be equal to the circumference of the cone, and the circumference of the cone should be 2 pi r, small r. Now we know our pi. Now we know our theta is 60 degrees. So we have 60 divided by 360 times 2 pi r is equal to 2 pi r. Now we divide both sides by 2 pi. Dividing here by 2 pi and here too by 2 pi. 2 pi cancels 2 pi. 2 pi cancels 2 pi. So now we have 60 divided by 360 times r should be equal to r. And we know that from this, we know that our r is 22 centimeters. But we don't know our small r. This is our big R. So here we have 60 over 360 times 22 equal to R. Then we have 60 over 360. You have 1 over 6 times 22, which is equal to our R. So our R then becomes 22 over 6, which will give us 3.6667. But then let's look at the question. It says, the question says, calculate correct to 1 decimal place. So then, to 1 decimal place, our R becomes 3.7 centimeters. That's to 1 decimal place. So moving on to the second part of the question, says find the height of the cone. So we are finding the height of the cone. We have the radius of the cone already, which is 3.7 centimeters. So finding the height of the cone. So let me draw the cone. So this should be our cone. Forgive my cone. And we have the radius of our cone, the height of our cone, and then the slanted height of our cone. The slanted height of the cone should be the radius of our circle, as you can see from here. Sorry, yes, this is it, which is equal to 22. So so from our cone, we can see we have a right angle triangle here. So let me draw the right angle triangle again. We have our R, our L, and our H. Now we know from Pythagoras theorem that our hypotenuse squared, which in this case is our L squared, should be equal to the square of the opposite plus the square of the adjacent. So H squared plus R squared. Now we need the height of the cone, so we make H the subject. H squared should be equal to L squared minus R squared. Now we know our L, which is 22, and we know our R, which is 3.6667. Mind you, over here, we use 3.6667 as value for the R instead of the 3.7 because there has been an approximation. And if we use 3.7 instead of this, then we get an approximation error. So to prevent the approximation error, we use the raw value of R instead of the approximated one. So mind you, take note. So now that we know our values, let's move on to calculate our H. So H then becomes, H squared becomes L, which is 22 squared, minus our R, which is 3.6667 squared. Our H squared then becomes 470.553. So 22 squared minus 3.6667 squared should give us 470.553. So taking the square root of both sides, we need just H, we don't need H squared. So we take square root of both sides. Square cancel the square root. So our H then becomes the square root of 470.553. So when we punch this on our calculators, our H should be equal to 21.6923. But then we are asked to correct everything to 1 decimal place. So our height corrected to 1 decimal place, we have H should be equal to 21.7 centimeters. So that will be for our height. Now moving on to the next question. It says, find the volume of the cone. So to find the volume of the cone, we know the formula for volume of a cone should be V should be equal to 1 over 3 pi R squared H. And we know our R, we know our H. So V should be equal to 1 over 3 pi times R, which is 3.6667. Remember, we use the raw value for the R, and we do same for the H. The raw value for the H instead of the approximated one is 21.6923. You are being asked to take pi as 22 over 7. So V should be 1 over 3 times 22 over 7 times 3.6667 squared times 21.6923. Now, when we punch this on our calculator, we should have V equals to 05.5341. But mind you, we are leaving our answer to one decimal place. So our V becomes 305.5 centimeters cube. So that would be the answer for V.